All right, thanks for sticking around for the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. I'm Rich Walsh in for Bob Pompiani tonight. We have a lot to discuss and the right people to discuss it with. From the Associated Press, Will Graves. Also from the Steelers, we have Brian Batko and Robby Incmikoski, former Pirates reporter and author. And we'll get to the Steelers in a minute, but obviously the big topic right now, guys, is the Pirates and what they've been doing lately. 2-7 in our last 9 games, dropped 3 straight series. You can put a lot of blame on a lot of places, Will, especially the bullpen. They have to fix something right now. They can't continue to go on this pace. I mean, there's like, what, 55% of the season left, Will? But you can't go on stretches like this.
Well, I mean, you can go on stretches like this. What's more concerning to me is, like, you know, they have been sort of, I would non-competitive against, like, the really good teams. They go to Atlanta last week and have a rough weekend. They should have been swept by the Dodgers. I mean, Tyler Callahan, the game of his life, and that was awesome. I was there that night. That's fantastic. And then, like, that's the thing. Like, you know, we keep asking Donnie Kelly, hey, is this series a litmus test? Is this series a litmus test? He goes, oh, they're all the same. They're not all the same. They've missed opportunities to prove that they're legitimate. Are they competitive? Yes. Are they legitimate? No. But the reality is, look, it's Brian and Robby. I mean, it's still wide open. It's been a rough stretch, but there's still, like, there's 38 teams that are separated by this in the middle of the National League.
It is, but I feel like today's loss to the Marlins and this series loss is, not to be over dramatic, but it's starting to feel like you could be at that point where the season starts getting away from you a little bit and you lose series like this. You lose games like this with your dog, your ace on the mound and Paul Skeens, and yet again, not necessarily his fault. I mean, he settled in and then he really turned it on after the rough start, but they just can't find a way to win games that he starts, and that's not what you expect. And this is the fighting fish here. I know they're not a bad team. They're hovering around 500. They seem kind of scrappy. Meyer was good on the other side today on the mound, but this is rough right now when you factor in the bullpen and the lineup going through some health issues.
I just looked at the standings a little bit ago and saw that the Pirates were 7 wins behind the Milwaukee Brewers right now. Think of how many games their win percentage, middle innings, late innings, was in the 90 percentile, somewhere around there, and did not come away with a win. That is probably what hurts the most. And then you peel back a couple layers, you see the bullpen. That's what's going on with that. Bullpens are hard to assemble by nature, just in general. Very few teams know their top bullpen arms and have them figured out from start to finish. That's why you see the most churn, roster churn, in that situation. What do they do? I don't know. I don't know that I would give up a piece to the future for a rental right now. But the problem is, the Pirates built to have this roster and make this kind of run, and it takes years.
Why not? You got to win now, Robby.
Yeah,
you need to win now. And I think, look, I think you guys all agree with me. Their problem last year was offense, and that's a much bigger problem than fixing a bullpen. You can go out and get a rental arm for not that much, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, you could. Oh, yeah, for certain. But when you look at the roster construction of this team, Keller's obviously hit a little bit of a bump in the road right now. Majinski was a pleasant surprise, and he gets moved to the bullpen. Skeens is Skeens. Bubba Chandler, yeah, he's had his ups and downs. And then you look at, who am I forgetting? Ashcraft. Braxton Ashcraft, who's having an unbelievable year right now. So, look, and then you look at the amount of offense they're producing this year, which was their Achilles heel last year. So, I don't know, Rich. It's a tough conundrum, and it's a tough situation.
It's sort of like the little Dutch boy in the dam, right? Like you're poking one, you put your finger here and something else pops up.
That's exactly right.
But the one thing, though, that we can say as rough as it's been for the last decade with the Pirates, including, obviously, the start of Ben Sherrington's tenure here, they've found quality arms out of the pen. David Bednar, for one. Holderman was pretty good for a while. I mean, they've found guys, and we thought Santana was going to be the guy this year, right? I mean, because he was so good at the end of last year. The bullpen's actually been pretty good, so it's sort of surprising, and they probably thought, you know, we kind of got this part figured out. Like, we're going to find some arms in the bullpen, and obviously this is, you know, they've fixed the offense, and, you know.
Soto was a good addition. I thought the bullpen would be pretty good. I mean, maybe not a great closer, but a good addition to the bullpen.
He's been solid, and what I was going to say is I feel like you don't even necessarily have to go out and get the best reliever on the market to upgrade over some of these guys in the way they're pitching right now. And it's not like you're even working through some struggles with young, promising players. Right. I mean, Ramirez, Santana, Bedois, I think we've all kind of seen enough of him after today again. I mean, these are, I don't want to jinx it, but relatively easy improvements to make, I think, based on who's available out there.
And one final thing, Brian brings up a great point here, and that is they don't need to get Aroldis Chapman. They don't need prime Aroldis Chapman in the bullpen. That's similar to what they did with the offensive additions. They needed a productive Ryan O'Hearn, a productive Brandon Lau, and hopefully we get get a productive Marcell Ozuna, similar to the bullpen that Brian just said. You don't need to go out. They didn't need to go out and get Kyle Schwarber or Kyle Tucker as a free agent in the offseason. They did well with that. And I think the same goes for this bullpen right now, just a dependable arm who can really just, as they say, don't screw it up.
Well, they have to fix it now, though. I don't think they can wait till the trade deadline because this season could get away. There's a lot of season left, but it could get away with you from you.
I mean, they've got a road trip coming up. I mean, Oakland's better. They're okay.
The Rockies just scored 23
right,
today.
I mean,
they did.
They could.
Oh, man.
They've been floating in this little, they're 500 now, right? They've been basically 1 to 5 games over 500 for basically 2.5 months. I think if they can go 4-2 on this, but that's the problem. When they were talking about when they started the season, and we were so they played a tough schedule and they've hung in there and they were healthy.
Yeah, they're going out west. That's never easy.
Right.
And I mean, hey, Jared Jones is going to be pitching at Coors Field at the end of this stretch. I mean, you worry a little bit about that stuff flying out of there. And then, going back to the bullpen, too. I mean, there are other ways, I guess, you can tinker with it. But Carmen Mlodzinski, they moved him to the bullpen, guys, but they haven't really made him a reliever. They've made him basically a de facto piggyback starter. So you could try to use him more, I guess, if he's willing to do it.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to ask about Carmen Mlodzinski. You can't just pitch him once a week.
No, especially when he'd been prepping the way he had been prepping this year. We talked about this on the Nightly Sports Call, Rich. It is, I understand it's just a transaction, or not even a transaction, moving a guy from a starter to a bullpen role, but the routine is completely different daily. And you don't know how that could impact a guy like Carmen Mlodzinski, who was throwing the ball better than he ever has, probably in his entire life, at the highest level. So I think that's
let's be honest.
a little bit of an adverse effect.
It rattles. If you're doing your job as well as you've ever done your job, and they move you anyway because of this other. I don't blame him for whatever. Look, I know that's a week and a half old now, or 2, whatever. We don't need to rehash it, but I can understand.
But it continues to matter because of the way they're using it.
And he did not come in. He did not come in and he was a problem. He didn't pitch great again. No, the Dodgers are the Dodgers, but he didn't exactly separate himself. And I wonder if I would be frustrated too at this point because he has done so many different things as they've moved him around, and he's continued to improve. And then he got. Like I said, he's pitching the best ball of his career, and they're like, okay, thanks for that, go back to the bullpen. A guy that hasn't pitched well for, almost 2 years? We're going to, we got a little more invested in him. He's going to go back.
But my problem is I don't think he's being used correctly in the bullpen, Brian. I mean, they're pitching him after Jared Jones. He should be your 7th, 8th inning guy, period, every couple days.
And we're not necessarily privy to what the conversations are behind the scenes, and Mlodzinski even mentioned some of those conversations when this decision was first made to bump him to make room for Jared Jones. And I guess, hey, on the bright side, if we want to inject a little optimism, Bubba Chandler seems to be finding himself a little bit. And Callahan Auto Parts, he's been a spark plug.
He
Rich,
has.
You like that?
Yeah, I do like that. All right.
You did there.
Well, we got to take a break. We're going to continue the Bucko talk coming up next. Stay right there. All right, welcome back to the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. I'm Rich Walsh in for Bob Pompiani. Tonight we're going to continue the Pirates talk, and we're going to start with starting pitching. Robby, it hasn't been great lately, especially Mitch Keller, but Paul Skeens here today. The Pirates are winless in his last 6 starts, and for being a Cy Young winner and maybe what people call the best pitcher in baseball right now, he hasn't looked like it. 0-4 in his last 6, 4.45 ERA. I know we're talking about the bullpen being bad, but that's not good, right?
Right, and you say the 0-6. The Pirates as a team.
The Pirates have lost. Yeah,
right.
His loss.
That is a little bit of a troublesome trend when you see that right now. There's no doubt about it. When this guy gets on the mound, you think, holy smokes, we have a chance to win every single day. That guy walks out to take his warm-up tosses at 6:30 in the bullpen 6 o'clock.
That's why Brian picked him last night.
Exactly.
Because of Paul Skeens, right?
Yes.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That is not obviously as troubling as the bullpen is right now in terms of the starting pitching, but I think that's why, look, what team around baseball, and you guys know this, use 5 starting pitchers an entire season? I believe Tampa did it a couple of years ago, but very rarely do you go through those same 5 starters the entire year. Very, very rarely. So you need depth in this situation. So I think the Mlodzinski move is biting them a little bit in the rear end because, not to say that, somebody else should have been moved at that point in time. That's not my decision, not really for me to speculate. But in terms of getting, I don't know how you can argue it. you lose your last 6 Paul Skeens starts. That's a problem. And then so many late inning leads. I don't know what the solution is because you built this roster for this season.
Maybe is there something wrong with him? His velocity is down a couple miles per hour. You don't see him hit 100 miles an hour routinely anymore.
Well, here's what I was going to say to that, Rich. I mean, he hasn't been a cheat code, obviously, which he had been previously in his career, but he's still been pretty darn good. I mean, you guys are around it every day, and I mean, is there a possibility that he's kind of saving up for it and he's going to start flame throwing down the stretch when the games matter a little more or a little bigger? I mean, is there even anything to that?
I would say he's at the point, look, we're 2 full years in his career as a major league pitcher. I think he's become, he's not just up there throwing gas. He's got
pacing himself.
He's got 6 or 7 pitches he can use, right? I think the problem is his fastball command has not been as sharp, and when he's not getting movement on it, guys hit it out of the park is what we saw today, right? So he's sort of a victim of his own success because he set the bar so high that it's almost like, well, what's wrong with Paul Skeens? He's average right now. That being said, this team, to Robby's point, built to win this year, but like if you're going to win 90 games, which is let's say that's the threshold to get in the playoffs, Paul Skeens gets 30 starts. You have to win 22 to 24 of those starts. You have to.
Yeah.
And they are squandering that, and some of that is him, and some of that is. It's weird. Like early in the season, I wrote a story about it after, I think when he gets to like 5-2. Hey, they're scoring runs for Paul Skeens, and look at this. Look how easy this is.
Yeah.
And now they've stopped scoring runs for Paul
That's why I made the point earlier.
You jinxed them.
It almost feels like the season's starting to get away a little bit. I mean, again, not to be over alarmist, but I mean, we zoom out on this show, on the Sports Showdown, and I feel like a lot of fans came away from today's game with a bit of a gut punch feeling.
And to add a little bit of context, when I said this roster's built for this year, that's the obvious part. I'm talking about the further context. We said goodbye to Josh Bell, Joe Musgrove, Jamison Tyone, Starling Marte. For this haul of prospects, they go down. They lose, 100 loss season, 2020, 19, and 41, to get themselves here to build up, to hit on the free agent signings, because there's very little room for error if you're the Pirates. So that is what makes this so frustrating. When you look at the Skeens situation, the way the roster construction is, built to win this year. You get Connor Griffin, he gets $130 million, $140, whatever it was. He gets a ginormous contract. So it's just, that is the most alarming part to what Brian said, is just to have these kind of struggles in this year when everything has to go right.
You're in the clubhouse more than anyone here. What's going on with Mitch Keller? I mean, he was good his first 8 games, his last 6 starts. He's been awful.
I mean, he's sort of like, he's around, in my opinion, he's sort of around the plate too much. I mean, the guy throws, I think he throws almost too many strikes sometimes. And guys, look, his stuff is not Paul Skeens, Bubba Chandler, even Jared Jones, Braxton Ashcraft-Letter. He's got to kind of hit the corners, get weak contact, and every once in a while he'll he's not a 10 strikeout a game guy. I just think it's, he's important to that group, though. I mean, he is like the old head in that group. He's the unk. And I think that, he's a valuable guy in the clubhouse. That being said, I wonder, if we might see a chance for them to. I'm not saying it's going to happen in this road trip, but let's say he has another rough outing, this week in Oakland or in Colorado. I guess would be
Sacramento.
Or Sacramento.
Colorado, I could see them, coming out of that series. Oh, maybe we'll have him skip a turn, and maybe Carmen gets a spot start. Because obviously whatever they're working on right now to try to fix it isn't working.
Yeah, he's supposed to be the innings eater, essentially, right, for this team, and it's not happening right now. But yeah, and especially the hot. Going back to the context of what's been going on lately with this team in this slide. It was such a promising start to the season, and the way that it was a promising start with the bats on fire. I didn't blame anybody for feeling optimistic and that this year was going to be different. The other thing that no one really accounted for, I guess, at least not me, the NL Central being this much of a buzzsaw is also sort of a weird quirk to 2026.
I remember Mitch Keller in 2019 in Cincinnati. His major league debut came on the back end of a doubleheader. And I remember he gave up a grand slam. I'm pretty sure it was Eugenio Suarez in the first inning he ever pitched in the big leagues. And then this guy wore it every single day after he started in his early struggles. Then he becomes a 2-time All-Star. I'm not ready to write off Mitch Keller yet. This guy has been through big-time adversity, beginning with the very first inning of his career, and I do think he's going to get it back.
Neither am I, but typical Pirates will. A guy that you were thinking about trading last year, and it was a possible trade guy, and now he's doing this, and it's going to be hard. His value has sunk.
Well, yeah, again, valuable. Other teams could afford Mitch Keller's contract without much issue. It's one of those things where the Pirates paid him a lot of money for the Pirates, right? So that's why his importance to sort of the rest of the roster is sort of outsized. That being said, the other part of this, though, is He's not pitching well, but like you're talking about the start of the season, but the offense. But let's see what happened. Their 20-year-old stud has got forearm issues, which ain't great.
Right.
You know,
O'Neal Cruz
is
4 to
having
6
weird things happen to him. Marcell Ozuna has not turned out to be the signing that some thought. So I mean, it's sort of like they were healthy at the beginning of the season and they kind of hung in there. The offense was good, and now guys are getting hurt, which happens to every team. But to Brian's point, which is like, he beat me to it. I mean, we all thought, I think a month ago, 6 weeks ago, we're on here, the Central will sort itself out. And it has not sorted itself out. Everybody's still really good. And all due respect to Skeens, even he would admit that Mizorowski is the best pitcher on the planet at the moment.
I think we would all agree on that.
We got to take a break. We're going to go from the North Shore to the South Side coming up next. Stay right there. Welcome back to the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. I'm Rich Walsh. The Steelers just wrapped up their official part of the offseason workouts. They wrapped up their OTAs. And Brian, one of the big storylines was all the money that they were giving out. They still have a couple more guys they potentially could give contracts to. What do you think's going to happen? JPJ, I would imagine he would make more than Herbig, right? Is this going to linger on until training camp?
Yeah, and it's not even necessarily that Joey Porter Jr. is a starter and Herbig has been kind of a super sub. It's just the cornerback market right now. I mean, if he resets it, which you look at Trent McDuffie at the top of it, if you're an NFL diehard, you might know the name. He's pretty solid. But if you're more of a casual, you're like, Trent McDuffie's name doesn't really ring out among corners. So there's a possibility that Joey Porter Jr. could get upwards of $30 million a year. And yeah, I mean, that's going to be the decision that they have to make here, because that's what it is right now. When it's your turn, it's your turn. It doesn't necessarily mean you're the best or you're at the top of the heap.
Look, you know football way better than me in terms of covering it and know this team a lot better than I know it. But $30 million for Joey Porter Jr.?
Well,
No offense, he's a very good player.
Yeah.
He commits a lot of penalties, doesn't he?
That'll be the
ticked down last
negotiation.
year.
But he hasn't given up a touchdown in quite some time,
This
Will.
is crazy.
Look, he's
I don't know if
young.
he should reset the market, but he should get paid.
And certainly he thinks he should get paid. I mean, we were at minicamp 2 weeks ago, and I said, "Do you feel you're one of the elite players in the at your position in the league, and do you feel you should get compensated as such?" And he said, "I felt that since the day I walked in the league, and I'm going to get taken care of."
And everybody believes in themselves
Yeah.
and bets on themselves. But yeah, I mean, I think
He's got
in
the
this
tape
case,
at this point to back it up.
right, in this case he does, and he's like, been elsewhere too, maybe on some podcasts saying he thinks he's somewhat underrated by the media. So I mean, he has a feeling for what his worth is, and now you are seeing the extensions going out around this team in his draft class. I don't know that this will be an easy one. They've got some time now between minicamp and training camp to do some negotiations, but this one could last.
Let's
Although
remember,
the downside to it lasting is then you get the hold-in situation in training camp potentially. Other guys have done that.
when they drafted him, let's remember he was technically the first pick of the second round, and there was some literally back and forth there with what kind of I was the 32nd pick. I should be a first rounder, right? So, and everybody's like, oh, he's a Steeler, family, whatever. That's fine, but Joey's still going to, just like his dad, Joey's going to make sure he gets taken care of.
Would you give him, if you're Omar Khan, would you give him that money?
Well, here's the thing, and maybe we can talk about this in the next segment too. That's a lot of money, but I know
options?
Kevin. What are your options? Kevin Colbert once told me, if you have an average team and you're winning 10 games and you need to get better, why do they keep re-signing their own guys? Shouldn't you go out and get someone else? Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, there's an argument to that, but I think this is a franchise that has always had the philosophy of you build through the draft and you keep homegrown players as much as you can. That got very difficult to do in Ben Roethlisberger's prime because of what he was making. They don't have that issue at quarterback anymore.
All right, we're going to take a break. Coming up next, we'll continue the Steelers talk and what they think is going to happen with Alex Highsmith. Does he hold in? Stay right there. With America turning 250, #1 Cochran is pulling out all the stops during their red, white, and new event. Get up to $1,000 in extra savings on tagged vehicles, plus find leases from $129 a month. Pre-owned payments starting at $99 a month, and financing as low as 0% from 8 different brands. Don't miss the red, white, and new event now at all #1 Cochran locations and Cochran.com. All right, we continue our conversation about the Steelers, and Brian will continue with contracts. Does Alex Highsmith, is he going to look for a new contract? Is he going to hold in or do something like Cam did last year? Is there any concern about that?
I don't think so. I mean, I think if there's any concern, he might look at more so what Nick Herbig is getting now on the new 5-year deal and think, is my production going to dip? Because he's going to be playing more. I'm going to be playing less. What does that mean for my future earnings? But he's still got 2 years left on his deal, Rich. And I mean, when you talk about team guys and selfless guys in that locker room, at least as long as I've known Alex, he is very close to the top of that.
You know, Will, they didn't pay Boswell, and he had 2 years left, right? He kind of held in last year a little bit.
I mean, I want to echo Brian's point. I mean, Alex Highsmith is one of the best dudes. This is my 15th season covering the team, one of the best dudes I've been around in that group. That being said, the writing's on the wall, right? I mean, and I can understand his point. I think this year they can afford as a luxury to maybe keep 3 highly paid outside linebackers.
Yeah, for this year.
For this year, but I mean, he knows that the clock is ticking. And if he needs to force his hand to protect his long-term financial health, then that's what he does.
You know, Alex Highsmith has made some tremendous plays. He's been such a big part to this team, and you always see his father's talking, on social media. It's just, he seems like a real likable guy coming from a real likable family and a real easy guy to root for. However, production is what matters more than anything else, and I still think he does it. It's like we were talking last segment about JPJ getting, potentially $30 million a year. At least Highsmith, you're going to get a pretty good level of production. But you're right, Will. That's a tough decision to make with a guy. When you get into that jam and you're paying all these linebackers all this money, what the heck do you do?
Well, no question, he's one of the good guys in that Steelers locker room. So hopefully he's around for a long time. We're going to take a break. Back in a couple minutes. All right, that's it for us tonight. Thanks for watching. For Will Graves, Brian Batko, and Robby Incmikoski, I'm Rich Walsh. Have a great night, great week, and we will see you next week.
Shout out Wanda King.
Shout out Richie's hair gel.